Hello, my name is Theodora Omambala. I am a creative director, consultant actually in fashion, and it's my pleasure to read an extract from Ben Okri's The Famished Road. I've had this book for a very, very long time, and during these unprecedented times, it was a real sort of reminder of self perception, self determination, self analysis, self evaluation, and how others see self, especially when we are gripped by fear of the unknown and the uncertainty of the future. And I thought it was a great correlation for me between the upheaval of one's own perception of self and the upheaval of the external mystery of society, because we don't know where we're going. And it's portrays tragedy and horror and the spirit world. Actually, I think that's what I really liked about it, that it was exploring the socio-political, geographical world as well as the spirit world. So very more than two-dimensional, three-dimensional perspective on life and how we perceive it. Another thing was actually the fact that it's the Abiku, who is the child, the spirit child, who has in my mind, a non-binary narrative. And also with issues like Black Lives Matters, BLM, it's very relevant to the conversation of or the narrative and the perspective of BLM. Okay, so this is the extract, sorry, that I'm going to read. It's actually at the end of the book, so I thought I'd choose from the end, as it sort of leads into a new narrative, a rebirth, a renaissance, so to speak. So here we go. Oh, what chapter is it? It's actually section 3, book 8, chapter 1. During the 3 days that Dad stayed in recuperating, the road had the first of its wave of nightmares. The road's sleep was disturbed first by the prostitute who had been electrocuted on the night of Madame Koto's initiation into higher powers. They held a small funeral for her. They carried her coffin up the road, and at night we heard the wailing of some of the prostitutes. The next day it rained, and 3 men who were laying out cables for the big political rally also died of electrocution. The rains were crazy in those days. The beggars suffered the onslaught, sleeping under the eaves of our compound front. Every morning, Helen would come to our door. Mum left her food, which she didn't touch. Every morning, Mum went out with her basin of provisions, and the rain drenched everything, and she came home in the afternoons soaking wet. No profits made, her provisions rendered useless. Dad slept like a giant through the new season. He missed the big trucks of the political parties as they went round the city, making announcements over their loudspeakers. He missed their violent confrontations, the eruptions when they met on the same street. He missed the beggars who stayed on our road, begging alms round the broken vehicle. In the evenings, I watched them, conferring energetically among themselves. They seemed to be waiting for a sign, so palpable was their expectancy. No one gave them alms. The inhabitants of the area never missed an opportunity to tell them to move on. They themselves seemed anxious to move on, to travel the roads to a new destination. It was only Helen who held them back. She never spoke, but around her was concentrated the initiative to set off for new places. It was odd to see them trying to continue with Dad's attempt to make them useful. Every now and then, they would try to clear up the accumulated garbage on the road. They tried in their clumsy way to be of help. No one appreciated it. I passed them on the second day of Dad's sleep, and I heard them arguing in harsh voices about the endlessly postponed forthcoming rally, about the school Dad was going to build for them, and about money. When they saw me, they would brighten up, and their faces would lift with hope. They would come towards me, stop, and watch my movement with hungry eyes. I took to stealing from the house for them. Dad's sleep made us very hungry. Mum made no money. Our meals got smaller. We would eat quietly, watching Dad snoring on the bed as he devoured the air in the room, his spirit growing larger all the time, feeding on our hunger. He grew in his sleep. I watched as his feet began to dangle over the edge of the bed. I saw his chest expanding, bursting his shirt. He gained weight, and when he tossed, as if riding mythical horses in his dreams, the bed would groan. He slept deeply, darkening the room. The candles burned low while he slept. The door was kept open. Visitors would come in, talk in whispers over his sleeping form, and depart on tiptoes. Dad was redreaming the world as he slept. He saw the scheme of things and didn't like it. He saw the world in which black people always suffered and he didn't like it. He saw a world in which human beings suffered so needlessly from Antipodes to Equator. He didn't like it either. He saw our people drowning in poverty, in famine, drought, in divisiveness and the blood of war. He saw our people always preyed upon by other powers, manipulated by the Western world, our history and achievements rigged out of existence. He saw the rich of our country. He saw the array of our politicians, how corruptible they were, how blind to our future, how greedy they became, how deaf to the cries of the people, how stony their hearts were, how short-sighted their dreams of power. He saw the divisions in our society, the lack of unity. He saw the widening pit between those who have and those who don't. He saw it all very clearly. He saw the women of the country, of the markets and the villages, always dogged by incubi and butterflies. He saw all the women inheritors of the miracle of forbearance. He saw the hungry eaten toes. He saw the wars in advance. He saw the economic boom in advance, saw its orgiastic squander, the suffering to follow, the exile to strange lands, the depleting of the people's will for transformation. He saw the emergence of tyrants who always seemed to be born from the extremities of crisis. He saw their long rule and the chaos when they are overdrawn. He argued in 3 great courts of the spirit world, calling for justice on the planet. He argued with fantastic passion, and his case was sound, but he was alone. He didn't see the mighty multitudes all over the world in their lonely solidarities, pleading cases in the supreme courts of spirits, pleading for justice and balance and beauty in the world, for an end to famishment and vile wars, destruction and greed. Dad was alone because he didn't see the others. The multitudes of dream pleaders invading all the courts of the universe while struggling in the real hard world created by the limitations in the minds of human beings. I followed Dad sometimes in his cyclical dreams. I followed him in his escape into the great realms and spaces, the landscape of geniuses, the worlds before birth, the worlds of pure dreams and signs. I followed him sometimes in his brief reunion with his primeval spirit and totem, in his fleeting contact with glimmerings of his true destiny. I saw angels erasing some of the memories of his journeys. He travelled far and his spirit ate, and as he sweated in our room, dampening the bed, it poured with rain outside, and the floods rearranged the houses of the road. The rains were sporadic. Frogs and bugs and diseases roamed in our lives, and children died in the mornings when the politicians on their trucks announced the dawn of our new independent destiny. Dad saw the advancing forms of chaos and fought them alone in his sleep, his body swelling with rage, and the forms overcame him and washed over his life. And when he tossed and turned, Mum would light a mosquito coil, a stick of incense, and a candle, and pour some ogogoro for us, and would pray at the door. Mum prayed in 3 languages. She prayed to our ancestors, she prayed to God, and she prayed to the angel of all women. Mum prayed for simple things that made me weep while the darkness flowered in our room. She prayed for food. She prayed for Dad to get well. She prayed for a good place to live. She prayed for more life and for suffering to bear lovely fruits. And she prayed for me. For 3 days, Mum prayed on borrowed wine. The spaces in our lives grew smaller. Mum grew leaner. Her voice began to disappear. Her eyes hid from the world, retreating into the depth of her head's dreaming. Her bones became more visible. Her blouses began to slip from her shoulders. Waves of demented mist passed over her face. I would catch her staring at Dad's empty 3-legged chair. Her eyes seemed to be looking over the photographs of her life. Always the strained smile of the hunger beneath the brave pride. Always the rats and cockroaches eating away at our dreams. Always the world seems to find a method to prevent her working her way out from corners. Always the landlords increasing our rents, the thugs telling us who to vote for, the rain leaking into our sleep. Sometimes her prayers would find Dad as he roamed the spheres that restored balances of the earth. But Dad's spirit was restless for justice and more life and genuine revolution, and he kept ranging farther out into other worlds where the promises of power were made before birth. And Dad travelled the spheres seeking the restoration of our race and the restoration of all oppressed peoples. It was as if I followed Dad that I learnt that other spheres of higher energies have their justice beyond our understanding, and our sphere too. The forces of balance are turning in every day. The rain lashes the bloated and the weak, the powerful and the silenced, The wind exposes the hungry, the overfed, the ill, the dying, and those who feed on the unseen suffering of others. But the restorations are slow because our perception of time is long. Time and truth always come round. Those who seem to hold sway and try to prevent the turning of justice only bring it quicker. And Dad wanted the turning now. He wanted justice now. He wanted truth now. He wanted world balance now. He raised the storms of demand in his dreams. He raised impenetrable questions. He kept asking why. After eons, he asked, what must we do? And then he asked, how do we bring it about? Pressing on, he wanted to know when. Relentlessly twisting and turning, he demanded, what is the best way? And with a bit more serenity, not drawing back from the inevitable self-confrontation, he asked, what is the first step?